But you're certainly not left over tonight. Doug, you are the penultimate storyteller. Please come up.
My name is Doug, and I want to talk about a boy struggling with grief. I've never read a book, a novel, or review of a book, or seen a film about a boy struggling with grief. It's as if it's a non-topic. We don't talk about that. We don't acknowledge that, which is what my family life was like. When I was 3 years old and my brother was 5, he died of leukemia. It was a slow death over about 6 months, and I have no conscious memory of it. But I've seen other deaths by cancer. I know what's involved, the chemotherapy, loss of hair, and whatnot. After my brother's death, my father was so emotionally disturbed, he would crumble at any mention of my brother, so we couldn't talk about my brother's death. And my mother was forced to take my brother's pictures out of the family photograph album. So the pictures were taken away, and she told him that she burned them. She actually hid them in a shoebox in a locked file. I never saw them until after my mother died in 2013. A therapist once called my family a no-feeling family. My parents never asked me about how I felt about anything. There was no emotional displays, weren't really tolerated. And on top of this, I also have had ADD all my life. It's attention deficit disorder, which isn't quite the best word to describe that. What it is scanning attention. My attention shifts and focus. I'm always scanning. I'm always out there. One of the ways this came out was that I was the tallest boy in my class, but I could never play basketball because I was always inside myself. And then I would see myself from outside, and all I would see would be arms and legs going in every different direction, and no central organizing unit, no central way of putting it all together, just as there was no central way of putting my emotional life together. I'm told I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what we call this. Actually, it could also be called enduring grief, because the grief stays with you for the rest of your life. It comes out in different ways. And I wish there had been a book describing this thing and how it comes out in different ways so that I could have understood what happened to me when I was a boy. Now, my brother died when I was 3. Sometime before I was 5 years old, I was at a preschool, and I remember just at random picking out another boy and pushing him down a set of stairs. I had no particular animus with this boy. I just pushed him out of the blue, out of an instinct. A therapist told me that what I was doing was I was emotionally devastated inside. I wanted to hurt other people because I had been devastated, and because ever since my brother died, I went to bed in a bedroom with my brother's empty bed on the other side of the room for 15 years, other side of the darkness. This feeling of boys hurting other people, I never heard anyone discuss it until I heard of a writer named Warren Farrell, who wrote a book called The Boy Crisis, and I could hear Warren Farrell's voice at a TED Talk saying, boys who are hurt others. And if you look at write-ups of the boys who become mass shooters in schools in America, they tend to all be boys without fathers. The importance of the father being role modeling the young boy out of that hurting cycle into a manly cycle where your strength and your aggression is used to protect other people. I remember very specifically being about 12 years old at a summer camp when a summer camp counselor got into a kind of wrestling game with my cousin and I. And the game was that my cousin and I, we would jump on this summer camp counselor and he would fling us off. It took me a long time to understand that he flung us consistently in different directions. He was always protecting our heads. We didn't bang heads together. He was using his strength and his roughhouse and his wrestling to entertain us and to be manly and to teach us how to be protective as well. And I often thought of that when I played roughhouse with my own children. I remember tossing them around and how much they loved it, and all the time thinking, you're protecting them, don't bang their heads, don't throw them so hard that they're going to hurt themselves. It's male role models who teach that to boys. Men are important. I completely disagree with the feminists who want to dismiss males out of hand and say boys don't need this. Boys need it, period. The boy who couldn't play basketball, I because of the ADD, I lacked the kind of easy social skill that a lot of boys had. A therapist once asked me, were you very good at those farting on the school bus games that boys play? And I said, no, I was this kind of stiff little kid who didn't do that sort of thing. She nodded her head, yeah, no good at the farting games on the school bus. This is a major category of boydom. So I was failing socially, failing athletically, and I withdrew emotionally inside from the real world that I lived in of boys and family. And strangely, I found that music and reading books that were imaginative were more real to me than the life I led. Specifically, at age 12, I fell in love with classical music. I used to love one symphony in particular, Scheherazade, which has a wonderful galloping, exotic rhythm in it, like a traveling music. And it also has the most amazing moment in it where there's a single violin playing a single note, and yet you hear the whole symphony in that single note. That was incredibly powerful to me. And strangely, it was more real to me than the sort of ordinary daily diddly pop of life. Later, with music, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia. I went to university in San Francisco because I was attracted to the music of San Francisco. And in San Francisco, I got deeply involved I was a hippie, really. I had hair, and I used to ride my motorcycle without a helmet to blow my hair up and up and up in the air. I wanted to look like Bob Dylan. I wanted to be Bob Dylan, but he was better at being Bob Dylan than I was, so he got to do Bob Dylan, and I had to go to classes and do homework. Anyway, the rock and roll thing progressed. I danced in the rain at a Jimi Hendrix concert. I had a wonderful time. I crawled under a stage at a Jimi Hendrix concert, went backstage trying to find the groupies and the free food. The bouncers wouldn't let us in where the free food was, and the groupies wouldn't look at us because we weren't famous rock and rollers. My big moment of triumph as a rock and roller was that I had a girlfriend who was a wonderful dancer who somehow recognized that the boy who couldn't play basketball had an interesting sense of rhythm and could do interesting things. And she and I once danced on stage with the Grateful Dead, a famous San Francisco band. We climbed up on stage after the regular set, and the 300-pound stage guard came to throw us off, and Jerry Garcia waved him away and said, I want to watch him dance. And so we danced 10 feet away from Jerry Garcia on the Grateful Dead. The trouble with all that was that it was a very stoned world, and which can be quite entertaining in the beginning, but I saw 2 mental breakdowns. I had a classmate who died in a fall. And the couples in that world were crazy. I knew one house where 2 couples lived together. One Saturday night, they all took acid together. They decided to swap partners in love, peace, and happiness. Sunday morning, one couple wanted to stay swapped, and another couple wanted to unswap. I didn't want to live like that, so eventually I left the whole drug thing and moved to Arizona and married a woman from Zimbabwe and came here, where the best dance I did was going to church for years with a baby on my hip and a bottle of expressed breast milk in my back pocket. The marriage, though, eventually broke up, and I went back to dancing. My wife wasn't particularly interested in social dancing. And I have a wonderful dance partner now, and at 70 years old, I recently just spent a weekend. We went to, there was a Congolese rumba band playing at the Alliance Francaise. She and I were the first ones out on the dance floor, dancing flamboyantly which she loves to do. And I drove her home without any drugs or without any alcohol. That's my new social role. I'm the designated driver and flamboyant dancer with my Jamaican friend who prefers me that way. I just want to close with one small prayer, which does try and pull all of this craziness together, and it goes like this. We are the tall dance of tears for the deaths of those we have loved the most. We are the tall dance. We are the long dance of the birth of stars. We are the infinite dance of a sum unseen. Dance on in the spirit, dance on. One generation on to another, on without end. Amen.